Marquez wants to know, what's your favorite WrestleMania match of all time?
Well, there's a few. I think that when you go back and again, let's talk about stories, and this will go back to the best match and all that stuff. You go back and look at WrestleMania 20, Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle. Man, they told such a beautiful story in that match all the way through. And people didn't get it. I remember midway through, somebody asked me, goes, "Hey, is Eddie's boot untied?" And he had been untying it the whole match, building to that finish. That is without a doubt one of my favorite matches of all time, and definitely one of my favorite WrestleMania moments, WrestleMania matches. The Hulk and Warrior from WrestleMania 6, because it was just epic. They hadn't done anything like that before. And that was epic to have the magnitude of those two baby faces battling each other was just unheard of. And it was magical at the time. I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but the Gimmick Battle Royal in Houston, WrestleMania 17, without a doubt, it happened. But other than that, I'm sure there's a lot, but I go to Eddie and Kurt. That was amazing. WrestleMania 20.
Wayne Moses wants to know, did Vince know that Paul Heyman was going to call into Livewire in 1996? In other words, was he asked, or did anyone think it was a surprise?
Paul Heyman called into Livewire?
As Bruce from Connecticut.
I don't remember that.
He called in as Bruce from Connecticut.
So Bruce from Connecticut called. Paul Heyman didn't call.
Right.
Then I don't understand the question. It says Paul Heyman called.
He did.
You're confusing me.
He said he lied. I don't know if you've heard this, but once upon a time, Paul Heyman told the field. There was one, I don't know if it happened again, but I can definitely say on that particular day, Paul Heyman did not tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help him God. He called himself Bruce from Connecticut.
Why would he do that?
I don't know. I think that might be the only time in history it's been documented that Paul didn't tell the entire truth.
I am at a loss for words. I'm shocked beyond shockness and beyond belief. And Conrad, around the holidays, you shouldn't say things like that.
My apologies.
Damn, who the hell asked this question? I want them banned. I want them fined, and whatever else we can do to them.
Hey, here's a great question. Me and you never talked about. Adam Leeson wants to know, did Bruce ever meet Vince McMahon Sr.? I know Vince's, your pal Vince, his father passed away in 1984, but did you get a chance to meet him like at any point when you're in the territory days?
Never did. Never ever got to meet Vince Sr. Nope.
Saul wants to know, what are some of the biggest misconceptions or rumors about WWE or pro wrestling in general that you know for a fact is not true and it bothers you the most? Is there one thing that really grinds your gears, Bruce?
So much. Actually had this conversation about 7:00 this morning over coffee. The Dave Meltzer is put out as an expert on this business. Well, no, you asked what grinds my gears. That grinds my gears more than that is the biggest misconception that I could possibly think of. He's about the furthest thing from an expert as you can get. And when people actually, quote him or use him as a source or give him any kind of a credibility, that irks the hell out of me because he deserves zero. He has no credibility. Let me put it that way. But there's nothing about him that is real. So whenever you hear anything coming from him, you can pretty much bet the farm, it's a lie, or it's made up, or that it's a fraction of something, or a tidbit of something that he heard from somebody who has a dog whose best friend is owned by somebody that knows someone who also saw something that they didn't know that they heard, and it's presented as fact. That irks the hell out of me.
Let's do another couple questions here. Sean wants to know, Bruce, can you take us through the timeline and the story of Piper co-hosting Prime Time with Gorilla and Bobby? I know this had to be some of the most fun you had in that era, right?
Wow. Yeah, we'll call it fun.
Oh, not so much. Okay.
Well, no, it was some of the most fun, but it was also some of the craziest things that I've ever been through in my life. We wanted to do something with Bobby. There was a feeling, Bobby Heenan was so far ahead of his time. Had Bobby Heenan come along just 10 years later, he would have been probably one of the biggest celebrities in the world, from a talk show basis or just in general. Okay. Bobby was that quick. Bobby didn't need writers. Bobby didn't need any of that. Bobby was just quick. Bobby was good. Bobby had a feel. Bobby could walk into any room at any time and command that room. So we were looking to do something with Bobby with the Bobby Heenan show. Give Bobby his own show. Give Bobby his own show, a 30-minute show that you could now see the personality of Bobby Heenan or Ray Heenan, the guy behind Bobby Heenan. And we did it. And the idea was we were going to do 30 minutes. We had a 2-hour block for primetime wrestling. And the last 30 minutes was going to be the Bobby Heenan show. So Bobby was leaving primetime and our storyline that we had concocted, and we needed to replace him. Well, Roddy was coming back, and Roddy was, doing other things. Didn't want Roddy to work and be on the road full time and things like that. So here's a way to expose Roddy and be able to still use Roddy and expose him in a different way. So we did that. I forget how many weeks it lasted because there's some things I've just blacked out. Working with Roddy, a joy. A little different than working with Bobby, because like Bobby and Gorilla had worked together so long, you could just say, hey, man, Hulk's working with Earthquake, and here's the main event, and boom, that was it. They told the story. They knew the stories. They lived them. Roddy would make them more about himself because Roddy was actively on the roster as well. So it was a different dynamic, but I loved working with Roddy because you never knew, and I just loved Roddy. The Heenan show on the other side, we would produce these shows, and we went out, and I went out to the freak show place. We talked about this in the Kazarni, last time we did this, and we found people, but we just found weird folks that were different, unique. And we would put them on there and let Bobby rip them apart. That was the idea behind it. And we did a few of these. And I think we were 6-7 weeks in, and I get a phone call, and it's Vince, and he says, last night's the last night that the Bobby Heenan show will ever air. I'm thinking, did I do something wrong? What did we do that was so bad last night? It was one of our tamer shows. What happened? What did we do? And come to find out, the gentleman that was supposed to deal with the USA Network had never told the USA Network that, oh, by the way, we're going to take one of the highest rated shows on USA Network, and we're going to cut it down to 90 minutes. And then we're going to do a 30-minute show with Bobby Heenan at the end of it. Kind of a talk show, have nothing to do with wrestling or WWF. Okay. USA Network was not real happy.
Yeah.
And they told us that they had a contract for 2 hours of primetime wrestling. And that's exactly what they want. They want a Bobby Heenan show. As a matter of fact, they not only don't want a Bobby Heenan show, but they didn't want a Rowdy Piper on primetime either. So none of this had been kind of cleared through the network, and it was just a different time and place. And a lot of times we did our own things. We didn't clear anything through the network. But I guess this was kind of a big deal. Kay Koplovitz, and she was the head of USA Network at the time. Didn't really care for us anyway. And so, yeah, we had to figure out how to get Bobby back on Primetime and get Roddy back off Primetime. And we did dual sets and all that good stuff. But it was an interesting time, to say the least. But I had a lot of fun working on the Bobby Heenan show. Had a lot of fun working with Roddy doing Primetime, because that meant that he was in Stanford. So we would always go out and have a good time and things like that. And yeah, interesting times.